Have you ever tried to send shivers down your party's spines, but instead it fell flat? How about that creature you spent hours on creating, and when it finally made its grand appearance, instead of the shrieks and screams that you hoped it would receive, instead it was received with indifference and laughs? Well, today we are going to talk about horror in your tabletop role-playing games and how you can finally terrify your players. Welcome to the Known Unknown. My name is Zach, and let's talk about some spooky stuff. So you finally decided to dip your toes in that haunted swamp water, or maybe you just want to make your monsters that much more terrifying. Well, you've come to the right place. First, let's start before we even roll any dice. Let's start before your game even starts. I highly recommend a zero session if you are going to do anything horror related. Get your party together either in person, on Discord, or through a group chat and pitch your idea to them. This is a good idea because it will get everyone on the same page and will help your players buy into your world. It will get them into the headspace of wanting to be terrified and horrified. Along with that, during your zero session, you can also all get together and talk about your favorite aspects of the horror genre. Maybe some of you like Eldritch horror, maybe some of you are more inclined to the slasher genre. This is a place to kind of figure out what you all like, so when you craft your game, you can craft what is going to be most enjoyable to you and your players. Along those same lines, you can also find out what aspects of horror people do not like. There are some things in the horror subgenres that players just do not want to explore. And after all, this is a game, so there is no need to put things that will actually upset your players in real life in your games. So if you have this zero session, you can discuss some things you do not want to have in your horror style games, because you can get into some dark territories, and the zero session is the perfect place to discuss what people want in their games and what people don't want in their games, and make everyone as comfortable as possible. Once you've already got your zero session over, your players are now involved, they are getting ready mentally for the game day, which could be a couple weeks away, a couple days away. It is now time to craft your story. First, remember what you talked about in the zero session. Remember all the things you guys talked about that you liked in horror and bring those elements into your game. Remember, the horror genre and the mystery genre go hand in hand. When you are crafting your session or your story or campaign, you're going to want to, in the beginning, get your players invested in your world. You can't start off right out the gate with your killer, with your monster, with the big jump scare. Think of all your favorite horror films. The first 10 to 30 minutes are never the horrific parts, they're always the build up to get to the horror. Start them off in a tavern or a village or somewhere that is pretty normal, but then slowly introduce the unusual into your game. Leave them breadcrumbs, leave them victims' bodies, get them really invested in your world, and then slowly bring out the horror in it. Remember that the scariest part of a horror film is never the actual jump scare, it is the anticipation of the jump scare. It is watching your favorite characters slowly being hunted by the ghosts or specters or vampire that the characters can't see, but you, the viewer, can see. It's always that tension, that anticipation that something bad is going to happen that is the thing that really brings the uneasiness and dread to the movie, and in this case, our tables. Talking about scary movies, once you've picked the subgenre that you are going to create your game in, go watch some of your favorite movies in that subgenre. It's a great way to get inspiration and also study them, see what they do right to bring out the tension and the horror in those movies. An example of this would be Alien. Ridley Scott uses the isolation of space and the claustrophobic feeling of those vents to make the alien, the creature, even more terrifying. That is still one of my favorite horror films for that reason. Think about how you can use some of your favorite aspects of your favorite horror films and put them into your game. How can you get your players isolated? How can you make them feel alone? Oh no, maybe they have to climb through some vents to get the MacGuffin. These are all scenarios that happen in horror films that you can slowly bring into your own games to make them more horrifying. Talking about using things in film to already bring out the horror in your games, also use classic horror tropes. Put them in your game and then put a twist on them to make them your own. We can all picture that foggy graveyard or what a stormy castle at night feels like. Use that imagery to place your players in the world. They probably already have a frame of reference for Dracula's castle or the spooky woods. This is something they've probably visualized before. It's a memory that they can pull from films. They can place them in the world. They understand what it feels like to be in a spooky castle at night as the storm is coming down, thunder roaring in the background. So once you get them comfortable with kind of where they're at, that is where you put your twist on it. What makes your spooky castle different than the rest? It's using classic tropes but still making it your own. We can't talk about horror in our tabletop role-playing games without talking about the creatures that inhabit them. My advice to you is less is more. It is a technique used in filmmaking to still tell a story, to still show what's going on, but not reveal it all too early. Think about your favorite classic horror monster. It's never usually the monster itself that is the most terrifying part of it. It's usually the mystery surrounding the monster. Think about the shark from Jaws. The shark from Jaws isn't terrifying because it's a shark. I mean, it is. The movie is terrifying because you never know when the shark is going to appear. You never know if it's safe to go out in that water. You never know if you're going to need a bigger boat. So when you're creating these creatures, always put a veil of mystery behind them. Don't immediately come out and say, oh, it's a vampire. Make it a little bit more mysterious. Describe its leathery skin, its sunken eyes, maybe its wings. I'll try to avoid actually using the monster's name itself. Make your players guess on what they are hunting or what is hunting them. And when finally the mystery of your creature is broken, release it with all its fury and give your players a reason to be afraid of it. If your monster is coming out like a werewolf or a vampire, make it hit hard. If you are running a horror game, you are most likely running a more deadly game. Again, this is something you should talk about in your zero session with your players. But if you are running a horror game, it is okay to get a little deadly with it. I mean, kill NPCs along the way, leave trails of bodies, make your players scared of this creature, and make it so when they get into that final combat, that final event, make it so that monster is memorable. Beef it up a bit. Make it last a couple of rounds, you know, make it terrifying. Now it's game day. You have your players around your table, either virtually or in person. One of the biggest ways you can set the mood for your table is the use of music. I personally like using lesser known horror soundtracks to go along with my games. You can use some of the more familiar themes, but just know if you use the themes from like Friday the 13th or like I said, Jaws or Halloween, that this might pull your players out of the game itself. So I personally like to go towards more obscure horror films like The Changeling. The Changeling has an amazingly horrific soundtrack and it is great to use. Along those lines, there are so many great ambient atmospheric mixes that you can find on the internet created by content creators. Go check them out and use the music to your advantage. It almost feels like cheating at some points because music can really bring out the mood. If you are in person, maybe even dim the lights, put on some candles. I know that sounds more sensual than anything, but the shadows flickering against the walls can really get your players in the right headspace. And last but not least, if you want your players to take your game seriously, you need to take your game seriously. Start your game out strong, use visceral details, and that's it. All there is to do now is have fun, which is the main reason we play these games. Have confidence in your GMing. You are going to do great, so enjoy and bask in the terror you are bringing to your table. My name is Zach from The Known Unknown. If you liked the video, please like it. If you want to hear more tabletop advice or me talk about new tabletop news, subscribe to this channel. You will get all that and more. And yeah, that's it, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you thought down below. I'm going to get out of here. As always, be excellent to each other, and I will see you guys all next video. Peace.